I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw, he came to my ears and whispered, "Please be easy on me." He thought I'm Mike Tyson and I will follow his script 40 seconds after I broke the clown's jaw. We are boxers, not content creators. I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw, I didn't want to put him down early. You all know I was handcuffed. I don't want to say anything that I will be regretting in the future, but all I can say now is the first 20 seconds was enough for me to end Jake Paul.
It's like this is the clearest fixed fight you're ever gonna see. Look at this guy holding his hands up and watch. Watch this. Oh. He literally shows him his chin and he goes down. It's so fake. Look at, he's got nothing. It's like a guy who just learned boxing.
The day after I woke up and told my wife, "Why did I do that?" I don't know. I just don't know what the hell goes on. I remember one thing. I had a very hard moment in that part of my life. But I assure you, in that age, I could have put that clown in the first round, but I sold my soul. And I'm
a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. And then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists.
Look, everybody's focused on the heavyweight chaos, but those whispered doubts that keep surfacing, they're not going anywhere.
That guy did great for someone who's been boxing for less than a decade. He has had no real professional opponents other than Tommy Fury that were legitimate world-class boxers.
I don't even remember what happened in the Tommy.
He lost a close decision, but it was a good fight. It was a good fight.
All right, let me be straight with you here, and this might sting a little. Jake Paul never actually created a real boxing foundation. What he did was engineer a bubble where he controlled every variable, and bubbles work perfectly until someone pops them. Anthony Joshua didn't do anything special or heroic by refusing to play along. He just fought like a legitimate boxer would fight any other opponent. The second that happened, everything artificial about this whole setup became crystal clear, and that breakdown reveals exactly what we were really watching all along.
Oh no, I don't remember the fight that much. I kind of blanked out a little. Listen, know what I remember? Coming back from the first round. And then the next day, I remember Jake is doing some kind of, I don't know, what was he doing at the ring?
Oh, yeah, a little bow at the end. He bowed.
And that's the last thing I remember. But the day after the fight, the day after, I woke up and told my wife, "Why did I do that?" I don't know. I just don't know what the hell goes on.
What did you think of Jake's power, man, when you were in there?
I don't remember it. But my body was really sore. Yeah, my body, my chest, my stomach and stuff was really sore.
Everyone keeps throwing around the word courage. And look, getting in there definitely requires heart, but courage mixed with poor decision-making becomes a dangerous combination. And dangerous combinations are exactly what broadcasters spend big money to avoid, not what fighters should be walking into. This is what makes me uncomfortable, because somebody greenlit this matchup fully aware of the skill gap, fully aware of what could go wrong, fully aware of how it might end. When you approve something like that, you own the consequences. Yet right now, I'm watching everyone dodge that ownership. You can sense it in how quickly the conversation gets steered back to heart and toughness, instead of addressing the judgment call.
He's also nuts, right? Just the fact that he's willing to fight the two-time heavyweight champion, former Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah.
A guy who's gigantic in his prime, built like a Greek god.
Yeah.
And you're going to stay, and he's a one-punch killer.
Sure, the physical damage is significant, but what happened next matters even more. Once you let a brand name test itself against genuine elite-level violence, there's no pretending you didn't see the results. Every single influencer boxing match from here forward exists in Anthony Joshua's shadow, and that shadow stretches far and wide and cuts deep. Promoters understand this completely because their safety net of plausible deniability just disappeared. They can no longer claim the limits are theoretical. We meet those limits in real time. They're made of concrete, and someone just crashed into them at full speed.
It's you could only take so much. And at a certain, like that one that he got from Joshua, ooh, you know, say if you have like a punch card, you have like so many punch that you can get in your life, which I believe you do. I believe there's a certain number. That one was like 10 punches.
Yeah.
That was like, there was a lot of concussions in that one punch.
Sure.
That was real damage. Like,
The part that gets under my skin is how inevitable this outcome really was. Not necessarily the knockout itself, but everything that followed. Boxing's past is packed with cautionary tales about entertainment crossing lines it shouldn't cross. These stories follow the same pattern every time. First comes the laughter, then the curiosity builds, then the worry sets in, and finally the regret hits. We're sitting right in that space between worry and regret. And once the regret phase kicks in fully, that's when the real behind-the-scenes stories start leaking out. That's when people begin creating distance and revising their version of events. The whole naive angle doesn't work for me. That's actually offensive to suggest. These are industry professionals. They know exactly how force works, how damage accumulates, how risk probability curves function, which means this gamble was calculated and deliberate. Deliberate gambles require someone to absorb the expected losses. So I keep wondering who was supposed to take the fall here, because this result clearly wasn't part of the plan, not this decisive. Not this permanent, and that gap between what was expected and what actually happened is usually where the truth starts bleeding through. That Mike Tyson memory situation still bothers me deeply, because you don't just casually mention memory problems. That's a warning signal, and warning signals don't get broadcast by accident. Whether we're talking about physical issues, mental concerns, or something even more complex, it created this underlying tension that never got properly addressed. It just got covered up with hype and promotion. Now Anthony Joshua's knockout just ripped that cover right off, and when you expose buried problems like that, people start demanding answers about how they got buried in the first place.
In pain?
Yeah, but
Does
it's
it
not
hurt
gonna, it's not from like talking.
Talk to me about what your jaw feels like, because you got
It's like a baseball in there.
two
then
plates?
It just feels like
4 titanium plates.
4 titanium.
Professional fighters process footage completely differently than regular fans. They're not watching for entertainment value. They're analyzing timing, measuring distance, reading intentions. What they witnessed was someone figuring out way too late that the game had fundamentally changed on them. That moment of realization is genuinely terrifying to watch, because it proves the protection everyone assumed was there never actually existed. And when safety measures turn out to be illusions, that's exactly how careers get destroyed in an instant. Joe Rogan's whole energy shifted for a specific reason, and it wasn't about taking some moral stance. It was pure recognition of a pattern he's witnessed too many times before. He's observed enough trauma to instantly identify when something transitions from competitive sport into serious warning territory. When he suggested retirement, he wasn't really talking about Jake Paul's immediate well-being. He was trying to prevent the next disaster headline, the one that would make this look minor by comparison. And if you think executives in expensive suits haven't already war-gamed those worst-case scenarios, you're being naive. Disaster planning is literally part of their job description. Right now, we're witnessing damage control happening in real time. Damage control always appears smooth and controlled on the surface, while complete chaos runs underneath. The longer it takes for straightforward explanations to surface, the more questionable the whole situation becomes. Because if everything was legitimate and above board, providing clarity should be simple. Yet nothing about this entire situation feels simple or straightforward. Everything feels calculated, managed, and heavily filtered. That's never a positive indicator. Anthony Joshua's function in all this fascinates me. He wasn't the villain or the hero of this story. He was the catalyst that accelerated everything beyond anyone's ability to manage. He didn't manufacture the underlying problems. He just exposed them faster than the timeline allowed for. Exposure eliminates control, and control was the real valuable commodity being traded here. Control over opponent selection, control over public narratives, control over final outcomes. Joshua stripped away that control with a single combination, and control typically doesn't get handed back voluntarily once it's gone. The dismissive crowd will say this is just standard boxing business. People get hurt. Everyone should move forward. But that's intellectual laziness, because the surrounding circumstances are crucial. These circumstances are completely saturated with marketing promises that guaranteed legitimacy without actually putting in the work to earn it. When promotional language outpaces actual reality, someone eventually gets stuck paying the difference. In this situation, that payment came due in fractured bones and surgical hardware. Now that bill is getting shuffled around while everyone hopes someone else will cover it. Jake Paul isn't some evil mastermind in my opinion. He's a manufactured product, and products get pushed to their breaking point as standard business practice. When they finally break down, the company blames the consumer blames external conditions, and external conditions get blamed on random chance. Random chance becomes the perfect fall guy because it's impossible to prosecute. But chance doesn't organize fight cards or negotiate contracts. People do that. People make active choices, and choices create consequences, whether anyone wants to claim responsibility or not. You can already feel the ripple effects starting to build momentum. Fighters are going to hesitate. Athletic commissions will dig deeper with their questions. Insurance companies will scrutinize every detail. Suddenly, that easy money stream doesn't look nearly as accessible. When easy profits dry up, loyalty disappears with them. That's when the narrative starts shifting dramatically. I'm absolutely certain some of the public support we heard before will quietly transform into strategic distance. The audience isn't as gullible as some people assume either. They might enjoy spectacle and entertainment, but they genuinely respect authentic competition. Joshua delivered authenticity in its most unfiltered form possible. Once fans experience that level of realness again, it becomes nearly impossible to sell them diluted versions afterward. That creates serious problems for anyone whose business model depends on keeping those distinctions blurry, because the line just got redrawn using permanent markers.
I'm just hoping after this Floyd fight, maybe we can have a rematch. He did well, but I want to try it again.
Is that something that you would be interested in terms of righting the wrong?
The psychological recovery question keeps nagging at me. Not just physical healing, but mental recovery. Because once you understand viscerally that you can be dismantled that completely, the ring environment feels fundamentally different. Heavier atmosphere, walls closing in, every shadow more threatening. Confidence becomes an act you perform rather than something you genuinely feel, and performed confidence gets people seriously injured. That's not speculation or theory. That's documented historical pattern, and historical patterns are merciless about repeating their lessons. There's regulatory and legal machinery moving quietly in the background too, because athletic commissions absolutely hate public embarrassment. This situation embarrassed the entire system on a massive scale. When regulators feel embarrassed, they start implementing stricter oversight, and increased oversight rarely stops with just one isolated case. It spreads outward like infection, and spreading effects always bring unintended consequences nobody saw coming. What really terrifies me is the possibility that everything we're seeing publicly represents the sanitized version of this story. The version that's safe for general consumption, while the uglier conversations are happening in private conference rooms where blame gets negotiated and story versions get synchronized. Because those private conversations shape future policy far more than any public press conference ever could. I don't expect this to instantly destroy influencer boxing as a concept, but I do think it contaminated the entire ecosystem. Contaminated systems don't announce their toxicity with dramatic explosions. They just slowly poison everyone involved, and you don't realize the damage until nobody wants to participate anymore. That realization comes quietly, not through obvious dramatic moments, but through gradual absence. When everything finally settles, what stays with me isn't the actual punch that ended it. It's that collective moment right afterward. That weird universal pause where everyone simultaneously understood that something permanent had just occurred. Permanent changes don't get reversed through clever public relations campaigns. They just exist there, waiting, accumulating weight over time. So this is my perspective, complicated and uncomfortable and unresolved, because that's exactly how this entire situation feels, unresolved. Until we get genuine transparency instead of choreographed responses, this story will keep evolving and mutating. Each new version will bring fresh suspicion, deeper doubt, and wider cracks in the foundation. Cracks don't repair themselves spontaneously, they expand and spread. Right now it feels like we're all standing on something that hasn't finished collapsing yet.